that's what we are going to discuss. These are the themes. So it's not about any stress, but it's about more modern stress. But before we get into that, I would like to ask you a question. What is the most important tool you have to be successful in your job, in your career, in your life? All together? Love. Aha, okay. What else? Passion. Brain. I think it's the brain, because the love and the passion, it all happens in the brain. Next question. That's your most important tool you have. What do you know about your brain that's practical, that's useful every day, every moment, to be more efficient, to be more intellectually productive, to be more creative? The room is too big to ask everybody of you. I have asked this question 100 of times, and what I learned from this is that the answer is basically nothing. We have a strange situation that highly skilled professionals working every day with their brain, and they don't know anything about their brain. And when I say anything, I mean anything. So, I would like to discuss with you today 2 of the 5 brain chains I discovered. And I got worried about these brain chains 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when the BlackBerry appeared. And first it was only managers, and then the BlackBerry went into the organization, and then we have now 7 years of iPhone. Sweep, 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 sweep. And I was wondering, there's something wrong with this. There's something is not, it's impossible what people are trying to do. So I went, as I like to do, went to do the research about the subject, and my impression, because I hate impressions, I hate opinions, I like to know. So I want to know in the research, and I discovered 5 brain chains, the ones that are mentioned there. But before we start, let me tell you that I don't have anything against the technology. The technology we use every day is fantastic. I use it every day. I wouldn't want to go back to the time when I was writing my PhD and I had to do the research in punch cards. It proves I'm a real old guy there, with punch cards. You remember punch cards, IBM punch cards? No? But then I got tired of this, and I was the very first one at the hospital in Leuven where I was working at the Gasthuisberg, who bought an Apple II. And the Apple II had floppy disks, yeah? That's how it all started. Now, my belief is that the combination of a human brain and a computer is unbeatable. If you look at what we just did, after 10 years of voyage, dropping this little satellite, this little lander Philae on this piece of rock. There's no human brain that can do that. There is no computer that can do that. But the combination of a human brain and a computer can manage a thing like that. However, the way most of you, and I would say 95%, are using the fantastic technology in your pocket has become totally counterproductive. Totally counterproductive because you do not know the manual, the directions of use of your brain. You're trying to do things that are impossible, and that's what we're going to explain you. But before that, there's also already misunderstandings about the hardware. Here, if you look at the Boeing hangar there, and the little man, and this little man has a brain, and I exploded this brain there on the top. A little facts. We have in our brain 80 billion, in Europe, milliard. 80 milliard brain cells, neurons, the noble cells, as I learned in medical school. Then we have 80 milliard glia cells. When I was in medical school, they told me this is like the scaffolding for the noble cells. to do their work better. But we have been learning the last 10, 15 years that the glia cells also process information just as the neurons do. So we have 160 milliard brain cells. 160 milliard. Then, that's not the most important part. But all those cells have between 1 and 200,000 connections. So this little cell in our brain, one of the 160 billion, is a little network by itself. And some of them have more than 200, so-called Purkinje cells, have more than 200,000 connections. And it is the connections that are important. It's the connections where we store the information, where they manage the information, the ever-changing connections. But then it's too difficult for my brain when I have to start thinking 160 milliard brain cells with 10,000 connections. How many connections you have? Trillions. And then how many combinations are possible? It's amazing. I think I use the word flabbergasting because I can't understand it. I'm not good enough in math. Now, there are a few research centers that started to develop a computer model of the human brain. And now Obama has been bringing them together to do for the brain what the genome did for our genes. And it's called the connectome, to map our brain. And just very recently, they managed, and that's the best program, it's Spinnaker. It's not a mistake on the screen, because that's how they name, with those two N's in the middle, it's marketing probably, how they write their name. Spinnaker. They managed to make a primitive model of 1 million neurons. And they did it with a dedicated, a custom-made chip to model neurons. And this computer weighs 450 kilograms, and it consumes 50,000 watts. So now you know already, you can guess where I'm going. If you now scale this up to the size of the human brain, a primitive model of the human brain would be the size of this Boeing hangar. The computer would weigh 4,000 tons and consume 4,000 gigawatt. Yeah, that's about 3 nuclear plants. We wouldn't be able to manage this in Belgium anyway, to have enough electricity to manage a brain like that. But the amazing thing is not this. The amazing thing is that you all and me, you carry this portable here in your skull, where it weighs 1.5 kilograms and it consumes 30 watts. Isn't that amazing? But then people say, yeah, but the brain is in the network, the computer is the network, and so on. Well, let's go to the internet. Let's go to the internet of everything. Cisco is telling us there that by the year 2020, 37 milliard of things will be connected. Isn't it great? Then my jogging shoes are connected to my smartphone, and my smartphone to my refrigerator, and when I come home, the drink is mixed and ready. Yeah? But if you look at your brain, it's a very different story, because your brain is in connection with every single cell of your body. Trillions of cells. Your brain is going to help to decide when to multiplicate, when to produce a particular product, because they're all chemical factories, those cells. Yeah? And that's decided from your brain. And there is no hierarchy. There is no CEO in your body. Yeah? It's distributed computing. And a very important thing, and ICT people know this very well, the most important thing is the clock, the biological clock. Without this biological clock, it will be total chaos. And that's what we end up. We end up here with an internet of everything, with hundreds of trillions of connections, and it works every day. So that's just about the hardware. So when next time you read one of those stupid, well, I should not use the word stupid. You're only stupid when you know and you do the things anyway ignorant, totally ignorant articles in the newspapers. Like recently when Watson, the computer Watson, won in the little game of Jeopardy from the world champion, and then again, the end of the human brain beaten by Watson. They told the same story when Kasparov lost from Deep Blue. Nonsense. It's only people that don't know anything about the brain, nothing about the computer, and nothing about chess that can write things like that. So, but now let's become more practical. Practical when I say that it's the first brain chain. And the first one is a root problem. And most of you suffer from. And some of you are really addicted. It's being always connected. We heard Telenet, and all those telecom guys are trying to get us connected all the time. You marketeers, you want our eyeballs glued to the screen all the time. Yeah? That's okay. That's how you treat your consumers, to get their eyeballs and let them give as much information as possible so that you can sell them as much as things they don't need as possible. But that's the consumer. Yeah? The software, the hardware, the whole system is made for consumers. But you as professionals, you fall in a trap. That is that you use this fantastic technology, but that's developed for consumers, and you don't use it as professionals. I'll get back to that later. That's how it is sold. Yeah? This is an older picture. Isn't it beautiful? Isn't it fantastic to be able to be connected anywhere, anytime, with anybody? What a freedom. Is that the feeling you have every day? Many of you are like, no, because the feeling you have is more like this. Tied, having to. You must be, the feeling of you must be connected all the time, anywhere, with everybody. Ask adolescents, it's even worse, but some parents are not better than their adolescents. And then I'm in smaller groups, when we discuss it, in coaching groups at INSEAD or individual coaching, people often say, yeah, but my company expect my company. And then I find out that usually this is bullshit. The must comes from the inside. For all kinds of little bit neurotic reasons, we think we must be connected. Why is this so bad? Well, it's so bad to give you an impression. Look quietly in a relaxed way at this slide. Yeah? Feel comfortable? That's what it is for your brain when you're all the time connected. Like some of you are doing also, I saw it, trying to do two things at the same time. When you're always connected, what happens is your brain gets into a reactive mode of functioning. All the time you're answering emails, you're answering SMS, you're answering voicemail. I don't know how it is in the ladies' room, but in the man's room, men are multitasking, manage to multitask. In the man's room, all the time they're reactive. What's wrong with being reactive? That's a good thing. There's some companies even have it in their values. We are reactive. Well, I'll stop it before you get too nervous. Yeah, why is reactive a problem? Reactive is a problem because it is primitive. And that's what I want to explain you today. When you're in this reactive mode, your primitive brain takes over. Interestingly enough, the primitive brain that you marketeers are using to sell to your customers. But you don't know the context. You know, when you sell, there's some stuff you want to get in sales, for example, stuff you want to get rid of, and this particular television, you want to get rid of it. You have too many of it. So what do? You put it in the shop between a cheaper one and a more expensive one. I put the one you want to get rid of in the middle, and that's the one that's going to sell. You know all those things, and you use them or abuse them sometimes, but you have no clue what it says about your brain and how the same mechanisms that make you sell are a problem in your daily work, cause problems in your daily work, and that make you less effective, less efficient. So let me tell you something about the brains that help us to make decisions, to buy things. You would like me to talk about how to make people buy things? No, I'm going to tell about how it decreases your efficiency, your productivity at work. We have three brains. The first one, and we are very proud of that one, and we should be proud of it, is the reflecting brain. We are the only animal in the world that can think, that has a reflecting brain. And the definition of thinking is thinking about things that are not present. We are the only one capable of abstraction. We can think about the past. Think about your teacher in the first class of primary school. You remember her. When you have a problem today, you can think about the past. How did I resolve this before? And connect it with what you're doing now and try to find a solution. The only animal who can do that is a human being. You can become abstract in the present. Abstraction, analysis, synthesis, and so on. We are the only one who can think about the future. And managers are doing this all the time, but you should be doing it all the time. What if? What if the economy goes to the left? What if the competitor goes to the right? What if the future? We can and start developing scenarios, very important. The other brain is the reflex brain, and that's different. This thinking brain is very recent in evolution. If we look at the first signs of abstract thinking, little marks, little drawings, then let's say the thinking brain is 39,000, 40,000 years old. But the reflex brain is millions of years old. We have it in common with all animals. As soon as an animal starts developing a little system to transmit messages, and some of those cells gather together, it's not even a brain, a ganglion, they develop reflexes. And so is for us. So our reflex brain in evolutionary times is hundreds of millions years old. Very important, and that's what you use every day as a marketer, this reflex brain is 100% here and now. There's no future, there's no past, there's nothing. It's here and now. And that's why, as marketeers, it's so easy to manipulate. Yeah? If you eliminate the reflecting brain and you get us to react with our reflex brain, then do all kind of primitive things. That's why you put a naked lady next to I don't know what, a car or whatever. You catch my reflex brain and I don't think anymore and I buy something that I don't need or I pay more than I need. So that's the reflex brain. And then we have an interesting one, that's the archiving brain. Did you realize to what extent, how much information you get in one single day? In IT terms, it's millions of bits and bytes of information in one day. It has to be stored somewhere. Well, this happens in the archiving network. I call them brains, but don't forget it's networks all over the brain. And the archiving brain needs a break. Your archiving brain does its work in the breaks. That's why it is so ignorant that you're trying to fill in all lost time with your little smartphone. So there is no lost time anymore. Yeah, I'm losing my time. No, this is no lost time. This is very important time for your archiving brain. And then you have those are the micro breaks, very important. And then you have bigger breaks, like lunch breaks. Who regularly skips his lunch break? No lunch break. This is very ignorant. Yeah? And after today, it's stupid if you keep doing that. Yeah? No excuse after today. So he does it in the breaks. And that's on the next slide, if I did bring it, yeah, I did, is something the IT people like very much and understand immediately. Why is this? Because our reflecting brain and our archiving brain uses the same processor. And it's a zero-sum game. So, when the reflecting brain is working very hard, then your archiving brain doesn't have room to do its work. When your reflecting brain is not doing very much, like standing under the shower, your archiving brain has all the time. And so you can imagine that the most important time of the day for your archiving brain is the night, is sleep. When you sleep, you're not unconscious. Your brain is working for you. So who of you sleeps 7 hours or less in a work week? You don't know how ignorant this is. Who of you sleeps longer hours in the weekend than in the work week? This is extremely ignorant. You really need my book. Go to Lado, buy it in English or Netherlands, and very soon in Russian. I don't know how they got the Russians involved, but anyway. So you need breaks. And the night is so important. I wish I had more time to explain you what your brain does in the night. The archiving of the information of the day that went by, and then at the end of the night. And that's the part you cut off when you don't sleep enough, is preparing you for the day that's coming. All the folders from the archives ready for your day. Unless, first thing in the morning, and I know I'm a smaller group, I'm asking this question, what do you touch first thing in the morning? The beloved person next to you or your smartphone? I don't dare asking this question anymore because it's becoming too painful. So the first commandment is disconnect to take a break, to archive and to recuperate. Your reflex brain never tires, your reflecting brain tires. So to keep it up, you have to take all those little breaks. About the reflecting brain, one thing very important, I'll skip all the rest, that's the first line. I wish that in 18 minutes I'll try to repeat this another 20 times. Your reflecting brain, your thinking brain can only think about one thing at the same time. One. Even the brain of women cannot multitask. There's something they do better, but I don't have time to explain this. But one thing. The information your reflecting brain uses is more or less things you know. And then you go to this uniquely human process. What if, should I buy this? Shouldn't I buy this? That's your reflecting brain. Do I really need this product? And that's what you marketeers don't want people to do, of course. Yeah? That they really reflect about the need to consume more or less whatever product you're selling. And the reflecting brain is slow. It's a process that's slow because your reflecting brain can only think about, together now, one thing at the same time. Then we have our reflex brain. That's a completely different story. The reflex brain can pull in, can process information from all channels at the same time. It's a multiprocessor and make instant, very fast decisions. We don't know, we start developing, knowing it more, and it can do this because there are shortcuts, and some of the shortcuts are built in our hardware. And some shortcuts are learned. Yeah? So with a lot of training, and it's good because otherwise life would be impossible, we can, with repetition and repetition, in a predictable situation, we can develop learned shortcuts, soft-wired shortcuts. Looking puzzled. Let's take a simple example, and you will understand. And you're trying to develop these shortcuts also in your clients, but that's another story. I was not going to talk about this today. Do you remember the first time you learned to drive a car? Huh? And your brother, father, instructor, mother, sister tried to explain you how to drive a car? She was talking to your reflecting brain that can only think about one thing at the same time. So when you come at the corner, they explain to you, first you brake, then you clutch, then you shift gears, and then you indicate the direction you're going. Don't forget to look in the rear-view mirror. You turn your wheel and you go right. With a brain that can only think about one thing at the same time, what happened? You thought about the brake, and you forgot the clutch. Stalled. So say, that's not going to happen again. So you thought about the clutch, but you forgot the brake. I went, and you had the impression, I'm never going to learn this. But then this amazing technology here in our brain when we train a lot, little by little, the routine of our thinking, the routine of our acts goes from the reflex brain, from the reflecting brain to the reflex brain. And then this reflex brain can take care of a lot of things at the same time. To such an extent that after a few years you're driving your car and thinking about completely different things. There are even people, or let me ask you, who of you regularly phones while driving? Hands-free or not, doesn't matter. Okay, there are people that think they can phone while driving. This is, I don't have time to go into that, I should. The risk of an accident is 8 times bigger. And hands-free does not make any difference, nothing. The lawyer is doing stupid things by forbidding calling a phone with your phone in your hand, because there's no difference. It's the brain that's the bottleneck. Okay, but that's not for today. So you think about your routine when you get up in the morning. You do everything and you go to work, but you don't have think every time, how do I put on my pants, brush my teeth, and so on. No, your reflex brain became a habit, took it over. Your thinking brain is conscious, can disconnect from reality, sequential, one thing at the same time, slow, logical, rational, but very important, basis of lots of misunderstanding, especially for the people who want to bring tablets and iPads into nursery schools even. It needs you to pay attention. Paying attention is totally different from your attention being pulled by the tablet. Yeah? And that's why it costs energy. That's why your reflecting brain tires. Your reflex brain also has attention, but it's not paying attention, not at all, because it's only here and now. Very important for your reflex brain is the attention is caught. Very important for your ancestors in the savannah, when all the branches were waving in this direction, and all of a sudden there was a little branch doing like this. You see it immediately. And very important for your survival, because it's the difference between have lunch and be lunch. Yeah? Or reflex brain. That's what marketeers try to do. It's to attract the attention, the effortless attention of our reflex brain that we have there. And, okay, the reflex brain is not ethical, it's selfish. And the reflecting brain is the only place in the world where you can think about being wise, ethic, creative. So, second commandment, disconnect to reflect. Yeah? You should really give your tiring, your very important reflecting brain the time to reflect. So stop doing those emails all the time on the most inefficient tool ever invented to do emails, a smartphone. Spreadsheet on a smartphone, serious text on a smartphone, on a tablet halfway covered by the keyboard. It's not very clever. I don't have time to go in the details, but believe me. Next brain chain, multitasking. Who of you is good in multitasking? Who's good at that? Come on, who's good at that? Yeah, okay, that's the last time you think this. And you know it. How do you dare raising your hand? Imagine that your car mechanic is a multitasker. Yeah? And you went to your car mechanic to change the disc of your brakes, and he's a multitasker. So he puts the disc on there, bolt 1, bolt 2, oh, little email, oh, bolt 4, oh, bolt 7, oh, 8, 9. Yeah? It's not comfortable. But even imagine your surgeon tomorrow. You're in the operating room, and your surgeon is a multitasker. And there you're laying, unconscious. And he starts the job. First cut. Looks okay. Yes, sister, could you show me the next email? Appointment at 3. Next, that's my wife. Okay, oh, it's bleeding. Psst, 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 psst. That's how you work. That's how you do your work, all the time. So, and I don't think your work is more routine than that of the car mechanic, because that's the only place where multitasking is possible. It is routine work. So why is this so bad? Let me show you a picture. You probably all know. Yeah? Is there anybody who cannot see the old lady? Can you see the old lady? The young lady? Okay. Now, try to see consciously the old one and the young one consciously at the same time. So being aware of the young one and the old one at the same time. Come on, try harder. Don't say, oh, no, try harder. What happens if you try really very hard? Yeah, exactly. You switch. And you can switch very fast. But you're switching all the time between the old one and the young one. And it's the switch that's the problem. And I'll try to explain you this. It is so important. Here it is, the switches. The switching is the problem. Imagine you're doing important thinking work, writing an important memo, preparing an important presentation for an important client, whatever you're doing, but it's important, it's interesting, it's complex. And you have this complex work in your working memory. And then there is this little pop-up screen saying, oh, well, whatever. Who has the pop-up screen on? Should be out. Because when it pops up, 2 minutes drop of concentration. But then you say, oh, that's a question of HR. I can do that quickly. No, not quickly for your brain. Your brain then has to put this rich context in temporary memory, clean working memory, go to long-term memory, get the information for HR, answer the mail of HR, and then, did it ever happen to you that you looked at one email? No? Next email. Oh, yeah, another email. Temporary memory, get the information for the second email, answer it. The third email, answer it. But temporary memory is limited, and it's first in, first out. And so this important work you're doing is going to the exit. And you're so frenetically doing your emails that your archiving brain doesn't have the time to store it into long-term memory. And then you send it to your boss, who's also a multitasker. 5 minutes later, you get the answer, yeah, it was okay, but the chapter about completely, you've completely forgot. I forgot. Jesus, how could I forget? Lost in the black hole of multitasking. So I'll repeat it so that you never forget. This is what's happening. You start working on a task, you store it in temporary memory, you clean working memory, you get the other information, and you build up concentration. And so the result is that it takes much more time. So much time that it doesn't fit on a slide anymore. So much time. And you make a lot of mistakes. I don't have time to do a little experiment that I often do with audiences, but believe me. And don't forget, every single interruption is a switch. That's why open offices are so dramatically bad for your brain work. Because your typical office worker gets interrupted every 3 minutes. Who of you sometimes try to do 2 things at the same time? Do you dare say, you know? Right? Like doing emails in a meeting? Do that? Emails in a conference call and nobody can see it? You do that? Yeah? Well, after today, you will not do that anymore. Because when you're trying to do 2 things at the same time, first big loss is that every time you switch from your emails to the conference, you're switching. And you're losing information, creativity, lots of energy, memory, and so on. You're losing. But it's worse than that. Because this idea of the lady of Microsoft, that I always forget what her name is, she talked about, and it got a lot of attention in the blogosphere and newspapers at one point. She said, we're living in a world of continuous partial attention. Believe me, I can demonstrate it, but I have only 4 minutes left. Partial attention does not exist because our brain, thinking brain, can only think about one thing at the same time. So it's broken attention, it's fractured attention. Let's say the green line is you doing your emails, the black line is the meeting. Yeah? While you're doing your emails, you do not hear. Not. Yeah? So that's why you know somebody is doing his emails. Yeah? He's asking questions that just has been asked. He's giving answers that just have been given because he just didn't hear it. So it's not very efficient, but it's worse than that. And also the explanation why you think you are the exception, why you think you can do that. Your brain does not like gaps. Nothing. So what happens? It's something that's known since the 50s in psychology, that now we can prove and see how it happens actually in your brain, in a modern brain scan. Your brain doesn't like the gaps, so it will guess to fill the gaps. If it is a subject that you really know very well, you might guess right. Otherwise, you might guess wrong. And so you see that in conference calls, that those people then hear things that have not been said. Yeah? They hear questions that have not been asked. So yeah, but in the meeting you said, what? I didn't say. It's just filled in by your brain. Some people then say, but evolution, our brain will evolve and will adapt. No, ladies and gentlemen, that's not how evolution works. Evolution took 600 million years, something, to get to the human being. When do we change in evolution? Only when it is an advantage for our survival or procreation, and combined with a catastrophe. Yeah, so that the people with gene A wiped out, but then there was a minority with gene B, and they survive. And then they procreate, and that's how we change. Not in 30 years. We have a flexible brain, but the basics of our brain are there to live with. You should accept it. So, the message is clear. I wish, could you put it in the other one too? I would like to push it all over the place here. Don't multitask. It is so inefficient. It takes you 4 times more time. Yeah? 4 times to 10 times if it's really complex. Do you have so much time left that you can afford it to take 4 times more time than needed? Yeah, don't multitask. You make mistakes, and you know mistakes, it takes more time than to correct the mistake afterwards. You have much more, many more mistakes. Why? Doesn't make sense. And if you don't believe me, you'll certainly believe this guy. Yeah? It's not literally what he said. That's what he said. It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer. If he would have been glued to his smartphone like you, he would never have invented this world-shattering formula. I was also going to give you the solution, but my time is up. Thank you.